Our world is full of strange and unsolved mysteries. Sometimes these mysteries take the form of cold cases with details that feel like they've been pulled straight out of a best-selling crime thriller book. Other times these mysteries are otherworldly and delve into the possibility of intelligent life outside of what we know here on Earth. Number 5. Since August of 2007, severed feet have been washing up on the shores of British Columbia and Washington state. The first foot was discovered on August 20th, 2007, when a woman was walking on the Salish Sea, which spans from Olympia, Washington, to Desolation Sound in British Columbia, Canada. According to the woman who discovered the foot, she was walking along the Salish Sea looking for shells and making the most of her holiday when she saw a lone shoe sitting on the beach. As she got closer, she realized that the white sneaker with blue accents contained a right foot. She immediately called the Canadian police, and the discovery became known as foot number 1. Over the next 12 years, 20 more feet, both left and right, would be discovered under similar circumstances in British Columbia and Washington. Authorities across the country lines noticed the bizarre occurrence and began working together to figure out what was going on. Both authorities noted that the feet were found in Nike or New Balance brand sneakers, or sometimes hiking boots, with some of them still having the tibia attached. Experts commented that some of the feet did not look like they'd been intentionally severed, which only added to the mystery. The main theory is that these feet are from victims of disasters such as airplane crashes, accidental drownings, natural disasters, or even human trafficking. Gail Anderson of the Center for Forensic Research in British Columbia said, "Feet disarticulate when they're attached to a flotation device, such as a running shoe, and they're easily washed ashore. Notice there are no feet washing ashore in stiletto heels or flip-flops. Also, today's running shoes are much more buoyant than in the past." Residents of British Columbia and Washington are still on the lookout for more feet and are left wondering just who they belong to and why they've washed up from the Salish Sea of all places. Some people even believe that they have a serial killer on their hands, who's disposing of bodies in the ocean where they then float out to the Salish Sea. Number 4. When Adelaide police received a call on December 1st, 1948, they believed that they were dealing with yet another intoxicated person who'd fallen asleep on Summerton Beach and needed their assistance in getting home. However, when they arrived at the scene at around 6:30 a.m., they discovered that the man wasn't sleeping at all. He was dead. The investigation that followed would unearth one of Australia's strangest mysteries. First attending officers noted that the man was laying on the floor with his head resting against a wall, legs out in front of him with his feet neatly crossed together. Witnesses from the area commented that they'd seen the man laying on the beach the previous night, but they didn't intervene as they thought he was just drunk. The coroner concluded that he had died at around 2 a.m. on December 1st, 1948, but was unable to say for certain what had caused his death. There were no signs of violence or injury, and no poisons were present in his system either. Due to a lack of evidence, the coroner was forced to report a verdict of unknown. That wasn't the only thing left to be unknown, and police soon realized that they too had hit a dead end. After speaking to residents in the area, it became clear that no one knew who this man was. His dental records were also checked out but could not be matched to anyone, leaving him to be known only as the Summerton Man. The Summerton Beach Man is described as a white male, aged 40 to 45, 180 centimeters with gray eyes and fair or red hair. He was found wearing a white shirt with a red and blue tie, brown pants, shoes, socks, and a brown pullover jumper. He carried no form of identification with him, and police found a train ticket, a bus ticket, cigarettes, and other assorted items in his pockets. Things were about to take an even stranger turn for Adelaide investigators when 14 days after the man's discovery, they found a mysterious brown suitcase at Adelaide railway station. Witnesses recall a man who matched the description of the Summerton Man, checking in the suitcase at the cloakroom on November 30th, 1948. Hoping that the suitcase would finally bring an end to the mystery, police opened it up. Inside, they found a red dressing gown, a pair of slippers, underwear, pajamas, a pair of small scissors, and a screwdriver. During the 1940s, it was common for people to put labels inside of all of their clothes. However, when police examined the clothing, almost all of the tags had been removed. They did, however, find the name T. Keen on a few items of clothing, though they weren't able to confirm whether this was the man's real name or whether he had simply bought these items from someone else and left the tags in. It wasn't until they examined the clothes that the man was wearing that day that they got their first break in the case. Sewn into the inside of the trouser pocket read a note that simply said Tamam Shud. The phrase Tamam Shud is Persian and translates to finished or ended, adding an eerie layer to this mystery. It was also determined that the note had been ripped out of a copy of a book, which is extremely rare. So rare, in fact, that investigators were able to track down the very copy of the book that the note had been torn from in New Zealand. They also found a cryptic clue on the last page of the book. What looks to be a meaningless jumble of letters and a code may well hold the secret to the Summerton Beach man's identity. Decades later, the Adelaide police are still no closer to finding out the mystery of the Summerton Man. Many have come forward with theories that he was a spy or a member of a secret organization, but no evidence has ever been able to back up this claim. What we do know is that whoever killed him went to great lengths to make sure his identity would be concealed forever. Number 3. In 1996, 18-year-old Jorge da Costa Alves was making his way up the Ventum Hill in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Jorge intended on spending the day soaking up the sunshine and flying his kite, though he would make a discovery that would change his life forever. As Jorge was navigating up the hill, he came across the bodies of 2 men neatly laid side by side. The men were dressed in suits with waterproof coats and were wearing lead masks over their eyes. Petrified at what he had just found, Jorge ran home and reported the incident immediately. When police arrived at the scene, they found a note with one of the 2 men, which read 1630 be at agreed place, 1830 swallow capsules, after effect protect metals, wait for mask signal. Police were stumped at the meaning of the note. Were these 2 men working on a top secret government project, or were they merely the ramblings of 2 madmen? The case only got more mysterious when the 2 men were identified as Manuel Cruz and Miguel Viana. Family members testified that 3 days before they were found, they'd been acting strangely and taken off randomly in the middle of the day, saying that they needed to gather supplies for work. Instead, the 2 men made their way to a nearby city and stopped off in a bar to have some water. The waitress who served the 2 men noticed that they were extremely anxious, acting as if something bad was about to happen at any minute. They also frequently checked their watches. Theories range from the 2 men being involved in a cult to UFO activity or even a secret government project where they needed to quote-unquote protect the metals, as mentioned in their note. Decades later, we're still no closer to figuring out what really happened to these 2 men that day. Number 2. In May of 1992, a man awoke to find that he'd been dumped in a ditch just off the coastline in San Diego, California. Beside him was a blue duffel bag containing clothes and some other personal items. Confused about what had just happened to him, the man then made his way to a gas station, hoping to make a phone call to his friends and family to get himself home. Only the man had no idea who he was and had no idea who he should call. He later told reporters, quote, "Then I realized I couldn't phone anybody, and that's when I realized I didn't know anybody, including me. Those first few minutes, you're literally nothing and you feel so empty. It's very lonely and painful to be empty." After rummaging around in his blue duffel bag, the man produced a library card with the name Pierre April written on it. With little else to work with, the man just assumed that this was his true identity and that something terrible had happened to him to make him lose his memory. After a few days of aimlessly wandering around and hitchhiking from town to town, a bus driver took pity on Pierre after seeing that he was distressed and confused. The bus driver dropped him off at the St. Vincent de Paul homeless shelter, where he knew that the staff would be able to help him clean up and give him a full medical evaluation. The staff at the shelter concluded that Pierre was most likely suffering from trauma-induced amnesia, but they were unable to pinpoint the exact event that caused this. One member of the staff commented, quote, "We've had cases of people pretending they didn't know who they were, but Pierre was very unique, and sometimes in other cases the residents were after something. That wasn't the case with Pierre at all. He didn't ask for anything. He didn't even ask for help." Pierre stayed at the shelter for 6 months, where he regained his strength and slowly began to piece things back together, such as his love for physics, music, and computers. The popular TV show Unsolved Mysteries aired an episode about Pierre's case in September of 1992, and thanks to the show, Pierre was reunited with his family. His family told the show that Pierre had been missing from his home in Canada for at least 5 months, but no further details were given about his disappearance. Some of Pierre's memory has since come back, but the mystery still remains. Why did Pierre mysteriously vanish from Canada only to end up in California? How had he ended up in a ditch without his memory and minimal belongings as well? Unsolved Mysteries has released 2 composite sketches of people they believe were with Pierre during the time that he was missing. One is a man named Luke, who Pierre claims is his cousin, and the second is a woman named Carol that he claims to have worked with. Number 1. How would you react if you woke up in the middle of the night to find someone standing over your bed watching you sleep? Would you scream? Would you fight? Or would you run? Well, that's exactly what happened to the residents of Cape Elizabeth in Maine in early 2005. The case didn't garner widespread media attention, but the details of the case are by no means any less chilling. The issue was brought to the attention of the Cape Elizabeth neighborhood after watching multiple residents come forward stating that an unknown man had entered their house through unlocked doors. As they slowly awoke, they would catch a glimpse of the man who's described as being in his early 20s just standing and staring at them. All of the residents who experienced this bizarre encounter said the man, known only as the Cape Intruder, didn't steal anything and didn't appear as though he wanted to harm anyone either. They also said that before they had a moment to react, the man was gone. News quickly spread around Cape Elizabeth, and residents began stepping up their home security, worried that the intruder would escalate from just watching people sleep. Several calls were made to the police department with possible suspects, but none of the leads ever came to fruition. The intruder is known to have repeated the same pattern in August, December, and February, before disappearing as mysteriously as he appeared. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to click that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future uploads. But I've been Ty Knotts, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.